Hey, legal rebels, this is Tom Martin. I'm the founder of LawDroid, and this is my podcast, LawDroid Manifesto, where I interview legal innovators about how they do what they do.
In this episode, I interview Mitch Jackson, trial lawyer extraordinaire and futurist who can always be found at the cutting edge, exploring new technology to authentically connect with people. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the LawDroid Manifesto podcast. This is Tom Martin. I'm your host, and I'm so excited today to have Mitch Jackson on my show. He has so many accomplishments. It's really difficult to list all of them because they take up several pages, but he is the founding partner of Jackson Wilson law firm, which has been in Orange County, California for 30 years, delivering outstanding results to people in Orange County for personal injury and wrongful death. Is it accurate that over 70 trials that you've done?
Yep, that's it. Jury trials, start to finish here in the Orange County Superior Court. So it's been a fun ride.
And, you know, you've been interviewed by Katie Couric, Anderson Cooper for your insight on different issues. Is that?
Different case. Yeah, we've been on panels together. We've participated in shows together, depending on the topics. And it's funny, Tom, because first of all, it's good to see you here. And I'm glad that we're here, right? But it's interesting how most of those conversations, including Peter Diamandis, Wall Street Journal, all had to do with technology, right? Something that you're passionate about, something I keep kicking the tires on when it comes to law and business, but everything had to do with some type of tech. So I think maybe you're on the right path to keeping us all involved on what's interesting and what's relevant.
Well, thanks for that. But just to round out the intro, that you're also named several times as litigation lawyer of the year, trial lawyer of the year, and that you've written 6 books, including one about AI, the metaverse, and I think blockchain. So I'm so thrilled to have you here, Mitch. I think we first met, it was in 2017 at the Clio Cloud conference.
That's right.
Yeah, and I mean, I was so impressed by you. You've always been at the cutting edge of putting technology together with the law. And so again, thank you so much for being on the show.
Tom, thanks for having me, and thanks for putting up with my attempts, my failures, some wins in the AI tech legal space. It's kind of interesting as a lawyer to put yourself out there and really try some of this stuff for the first time, especially when it's new. You've got a group of people that kind of frown upon what you're doing, another group of people is paying attention to what you're doing, and another group of people is waiting for you to figure it out so that they can incorporate it into their practice. And it's been a fun journey in the tech space, with the legal influence over the last, I don't know, for me, probably late 80s, early 90s, when the internet and dial-up modems and everything first started to come around. That's when we started to dip our toe in the digital sandbox and have never looked back. It's been a fun journey, Tom, especially when I get to meet people like you, that are leading the way. And I mean that.
Well, thank you, Mitch. Right back at you. So it goes back that far. You've been dabbling in this all the way back to the 80s.
Had to figure out a way to stand out in the legal community here in Orange County, California. When I first started practicing, and I'm a first-year college graduate, much less a first-year lawyer in my immediate family, and grew up in Tucson, Arizona on a guest ranch, and we had guests from all over the world visiting, playing cowboy or cowgirl for a week, riding horses and doing all those other fun cowboy things. And I watched my mom and dad over the years interact with all of our guests, and the types of conversations and relationships and rapport that they built. And the reason I'm bringing this up is that when I moved to Orange County, California, went to law school, opened up my own practice on day one, I realized if I tapped into these same relationship, networking, and communication approaches and tools that I watched my mom and dad do for 20 plus years while I lived on the ranch, it might help me build out a firm. And what I didn't realize though, Tom, and there's probably some lawyers out there that can relate to this, especially new practitioners, it's kind of hard to get your foot in the door when you're the new kid on the block. How do you get the cases? How do you get those referrals? How do you stand out? And what I noticed when the internet, as I understood it to be, dial-up modems, the early websites, things like this started to come around, it allowed us an opportunity to do something different, to answer legal questions instead of 1-to-1, 1-to-100, 1-to-1,000 with, the early video days when YouTube came around in the 2005, 6, 7, whatever it was, and to all of a sudden be able to do things that other lawyers weren't doing to create that brand and that opportunity. So yes, we definitely leveraged digital technology, the internet, and other file sharing services back in the day as an opportunity to stand out from all the other lawyers in town. And wrapping up my response, it's led me to firmly believe that if you're working hard to be just like all the other lawyers in town, you're building your brand and your practice the wrong way. If you're unique, engaging, somewhat entertaining at times when it's appropriate, and you're doing things a new way, looking through a new lens, I think that gives you the opportunity to build your own brand so that when you look back, you know that you're not leaving your cards on the table. So that's what got me interested in tech early on, Tom, is it was a fascinating time back then for those of us that were around. And it definitely opened some doors as a lawyer and created new opportunities that I don't think I would have had I not embraced the new technology and the new opportunities.
I wholeheartedly agree with you, Mitch, that I think that there's a lot of opportunities that sometimes lawyers miss out on because they're doing it like everyone else, you know? And I was guilty of it too when I launched my own practice in
Sure.
2006. You see, you kind of look out there for examples, and sometimes you see that what other people are doing with their website or what have you, and you mimic it, but you don't stand out from the crowd that way.
It's tough, especially when established firms have large marketing and branding budgets, and they can promote their success and all the good things that they do to more potential clients than maybe you could or I could when I started in 1986. And it just took a moment for me to finally really realize, Mitch, you got to give yourself permission to try some new things. You can play the same game that everyone else is playing or try something new. And because I tried something new, Tom, I allowed me to meet a lot of mutual friends of yours in this space, right? In the legal tech space. It's allowed us over the years to bring in some really interesting clients and participate from a legal standpoint in this space. And it's been a fun ride. It's made practicing law an interesting and fascinating journey.
Yeah, definitely. It's nice to have a little spice involved in that. Uh,
Absolutely.
so before we get into the tech stuff and all that, which I definitely want to get into with you because I know that you're so knowledgeable about it, I want to go back a little bit. I can't let it go about the ranch. Tell me more. That must have been an amazing experience. Your parents ran a ranch?
Yes, my mom and dad, along with my dad's parents, moved to Tucson, Arizona from Columbus, Ohio, and opened up a dude ranch called the Saddle and Surrey Guest Ranch. And they'd entertain guests from all over the world in just outside of Tucson, Arizona. And so I grew up doing all those things, right? All the cowboy things, riding, roping, driving tractors, cleaning manure, but parlaying that with having an opportunity as I got older to meet some really interesting guests. Most of them were repeat guests. They'd come back year after year, and the kids would grow up together, and I'd watch my parents nurture these relationships and make true friends. But we had guests at the ranch, people like Walt Disney and his family. It was the year before I was born. We had people like Morley Safer from 60 Minutes, who I hit some tennis balls with. I didn't realize we were supposed to let the guests win, but I grew up on the tennis court, so Morley didn't have a chance. That didn't go over very well. John Wayne, we had Rock Hudson, a lot of really interesting, famous people come out. And when the lawyers from around the world would come out, I used to love sitting at the bar, especially when I got a little bit older, and hear their war stories and hear how they've made a difference in their client's case, or a book that they read, or maybe an interview they did that a movie was crafted after. And it just really piqued my interest. Like, okay, maybe there's something else that I might want to do rather than take over the ranch, or maybe get into the resort industry. And the key point to me, Tom, is after graduating from the University of Arizona, I actually took a position up at Lake Tahoe, helping open up Caesar's Tahoe. And I was working the hotel side of it, front desk some nights of the week, the back end office admin. Thought I wanted a career in that particular business, but then I realized, after 2 years, that's not what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. Got in a couple of 50-day ski seasons, a couple of summers where we'd windsurf or sailboard every day on Lake Tahoe. It was a great lifestyle back then, but I was looking for a little bit more. And I've always been interested in the law. And a friend of mine who I skied with, who was a lawyer, said, Mitch, if you want to go to law school, do it now before you have too many financial obligations, family, bills, mortgages, things like this. So I remember getting in the car, loading my sailboard on top of my Volkswagen Scirocco, hitting the dashboard a couple times so that the radio would work, driving back down to Tucson, which I think was like an 18-hour drive, and showing up and telling my mom and dad I was going to study for the LSAT and go to law school. And that's what we did. So it's been an interesting journey, but I will tell you, when it comes to trying cases, when it comes to mediating cases, which I love doing now, we're doing Zoom mediations, that experience working that front desk, the experience in college, being a waiter, a bartender, working the front doors of some of the local watering holes around the University of Arizona. All of those things, I think, really have helped me connect with people and frankly, win some of the cases that I've won over the years. It's not what I learned in law school. It's those people skills. It's those building rapport skills that I think, I wrote about last week on LinkedIn. I think it's communications, one of the most important things we can all learn how to do and do better each and every day, with new technology basically assisting us or pushing us down that path to be better and faster.
Mitch, you already anticipated a lot of the questions I have and where I'm going with this. But one of the things I love doing with guests I get to talk to is seeing those early motivations and influences and the threads that run through their career and their life, and hearing more about your experience on the ranch with your parents. I mean, number one, the fact that your parents actually created that business, obviously had an effect on you in terms of having an entrepreneurial mindset and being able to see opportunities as they come. I see that in everything else that you've done. Also, like the fact that you're so easy to talk to, and you're so good at, breaking the ice with people. And it makes perfect sense now that you were probably doing that on a daily basis, multiple times with the people that you met there, right?
Oftentimes not by choice. I mean, imagine growing up on a ranch where the guests come first. And back then, there were only 3 channels on the television. So if I'm laying there when I was younger watching Saturday morning cartoons, and the guests from back east, and this is what would happen, wanted to come in and watch, a Michigan or Ohio State, basketball or football game, that channel got changed. It was an interesting way of kind of growing up in a really cool lifestyle, but we always had to put the guests first, which means there wasn't a whole lot of privacy, but I was exposed to a lot of very successful people, and I kind of paid attention to what separated them from other people I had met in life, Tom. And I think it's a combination of growing up in that environment, but also for me, it was marrying Lisa. You've met my wife. You were kind enough to have me participate in one of your just wonderful events. And Lisa grew up in a business where her mom and dad worked together. And for those of you that haven't met my wife, Lisa, it's Lisa Wilson. We met in law school, and she's been a partner in the firm, Jackson and Wilson, ever since we started it. We've been working together ever since. And her mom and dad worked together. And when you're working together, you give each other space when if I'm preparing for a trial, Lisa understands, she'll pick up the ball and run with it on some other things, and vice versa. If she's working, getting ready for litigation or trial, I'll pick up the ball and run with it. And she grew up with her mom and dad doing the same thing. When they met in high school, Mike's first job after he got out of the Army was loading milk crates on the back of a milk truck. And when I met the family, uh, maybe 20 years later, whatever it was, when I first met Lisa and she brought me home, they had their own dairy distributorship in the Antelope Valley, very successful family, which I believe they sold when Mike and Joyce were about 52 or 53. They retired early. And then after about 6 months, Mike got bored and decided that they needed a community bank. And not having any banking experience, he and some friends, along with Joyce, got together and started the Antelope Valley Bank in Lancaster, California, right? So she grew up in that environment. I grew up in that environment. And I think because of that, we've been encouraging each other to take calculated but focused risk, ever since, and all the things that you see me doing and all the things that I see you doing too as an entrepreneur. It just makes it easier.
Wow. I think for some people that might be listening or watching this, they might not be able to imagine working with their spouse 24/7,
Right. Sure. I get it. But I can't imagine not working with Lisa. Like, one of the things Mike told me when I asked his permission to marry his daughter, we were pulling a water skiing boat to a lake in the middle of nowhere. And I had been dating Lisa for about 3 years. I was taking my time, and I call him Chief. He's a big family. I said, "Hey, Chief, what would you say if I asked permission to marry your daughter?" And he pulls off in the middle of nowhere. And I'm a decent sized guy, but Mike's bigger than I am, and I was a little intimidated. And he stops, turns off the engine, looks at me, and we're in the middle of nowhere. And he goes, first of all, thank you for asking. And I'd love to have another son in the family, but do me a favor. When we get to the lake, I want you to ask Joycey, my current mother-in-law, ask her permission too. And it kind of resonated in me, the level of mutual respect that needs to happen when you're doing these things. And when Joyce said yes, Mike goes, I got one more word of advice for you. When you're sitting around the water cooler, when you're with your friends at work, do me a favor and don't be that guy that badmouths his spouse. Like, don't participate in those conversations. Your job is to take care of your family, your health, both mentally and physically, your friends, your neighbors, and then your occupation or profession. Keep things in that order. And I'm answering your question this way, Tom, is because that's the way, I was brought up. That's the way Lisa was brought up. And I can't even imagine being in a situation where we're not having lunch once or twice a week, or maybe on a Thursday afternoon, we'll sneak out for lunch in a movie. To me, that's what's helped keep us together, over 3+ decades. But I get it. Some of my friends are thinking, wow, how do you do that? And I think to myself, why wouldn't you want to do that?
That's amazing. And just, I actually get to work with my wife as well. And
Congratulations. It's great when everyone's happy. Don't
yeah,
get us wrong. Don't get Tom and I wrong. There are moments, right, where it's like, she'll tell me, Mitch, you go into work, you're not going to see me today, or vice versa. But that's life. That's reality. And 9 times out of 10, it's a really good experience. And I'm lucky because I get to be married to one of the best trial lawyers on the planet. If I ever have an issue, if I ever have a question, I can run it by Lisa, and we're good to go. So it works.
it's awesome when it does work.
Yep.
Well, so I understand, like, initially, like, bringing some of the tech in terms of differentiating your brand and like what you do differently. And I see that you've consistently been getting that message out. And even now you have like a virtual mediation that you offer, right? Maneuver mediation.
Exactly. So one of the things I enjoy doing is negotiating and mediating civil disputes. And ever since COVID, as you well know, because of the speed of technology, consumer acceptance, remote working. People would prefer to meet on Zoom, for example, or another comparable program than drive an hour in Los Angeles traffic to mediate a case. So a few years ago, what we did is we rolled out a Zoom version of a mediation service. And that's what we're doing. And people love it. And what's interesting is we're doing a lot of Web3 mediations where there's some new issues out there, whether they revolve around intellectual property. Is it a copyright? Is it not a copyright? Did somebody make a mistake as to their interpretation of a smart contract? Whatever it may be, nobody's really aware as to how that case is going to turn out in front of a judge or a jury. They don't want the bad public publicity. I think I was repetitive there. They don't want the publicity of filing a case and then not prevailing on that action. They don't want to spend the time or money litigating these things. And so we're offering, the option of what everyone would understand to be mediation, but through a virtual space. And it's been very well received. And there's something special, Tom, about, mediating a case from the waist up with a suit jacket and nice red tie, and from the waist down, a pair of running shorts and bare feet. I mean, how could you beat that as a professional? I'm just being real and I'm being transparent, but I want everybody to know there's more than one way to practice law. There's more than one way to run a business. And if you're not having fun expanding and pushing the limits and trying new things, you and I both know life's too short. You're going about it the wrong way.
Absolutely. And just for the viewers, I am wearing pants right now. So
that makes one of us, because I'm going for a run as soon as we're done. Yeah, look, you and I have seen each other in black tie, right?
Yeah.
We can both clean up when we need to. It's funny because whether I'm flying a drone over the ocean in the morning and connecting on live stream with other lawyers from around the country, building relationships, if I'm on a paddleboard recording an audio for a podcast, if I'm in the office, working as a traditional lawyer, meeting clients, whatever it may be, I can tell you right now that after 3+ decades of doing this, if I'm around really cool people that enjoy what they're doing and they're excited with what they're doing and they like to leverage technology like we're talking about to do the things that they want to do, that's what makes it fun. That's what makes life interesting. And it's never been easier to be a good lawyer by leveraging this tech. The stuff you do, we haven't talked about this, but the stuff you do at LawDroid with your AI services, with Copilot, whatever it may be, it allows us to be faster as lawyers. It allows us to be better as lawyers. It allows us to do things in 15 minutes that maybe would have taken 2 days in the past. And for some of us that were around where we physically would drive to the courthouse and file a document, or we'd physically go down to the law library to do a week of research, or we'd physically copy and paste content and then have a data processing service, put it all together as a complaint or a motion. What we're now doing when it comes to research, document preparation, assembly preparation, when it comes to everything else, I just don't take any of this for granted. I'm very, very glad to be alive in today's world, to be able to see what's happening in real time. And it's exciting.
Yeah. Well, I do know for a fact that you clean up well. Thank you so much for being the MC at the American Legal Technology Awards last year. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you for asking.
One of the things I want to take note of that, to point out from what you were talking about is, because my audience hopefully is solo and small lawyers, small firm lawyers. And so it's not just about using tech for workflows and efficiency and all that, but it's also, it opens up potential doors of opportunity. And that example that you have of maneuver mediation is one way where you could take technology and actually create a new line of business from it.
Quickly and easily. In the past, it would have cost tens of thousands of dollars and a lot of flights around the country to shake hands and build relationships and to nurture the new business. Today, it's a couple of clicks. It's a little changing your mindset. It's tapping into existing resources to do the things that we're talking about. One of the things I'm really enjoying with the virtual mediations, Tom, and you're going to get a kick out of this, I may have talked to you about this, is if we're in a 4 or 8 hour mediation, the parties are in breakout rooms, just like a traditional mediation. They don't necessarily need to see each other. And let me make sure my phone's off. And what we'll do is during an impasse, I'll just let the parties know, listen, grab a cup of coffee, talk to each other. I'm going to step out for a second and I'll be back in 3 to 5 minutes. I'll step out, go to another tab, and I'll have set up in one of our, let's just call it an AI chatbot, but one of our AI services, I'll have one party's brief in there, another party's brief in there. I'll have a questionnaire that we complete that talks about the personality of the lawyers, the personalities of the clients, and the pertinent and key issues in the case, along with suggested outcomes that each side has already shared with me, right? And can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I think my Bluetooth's connected. And I will then prompt, give me 10 open-ended questions to help me move the parties past this particular issue that's happening right now in real time. Inevitably, Tom, it'll give me, out of the 10 questions, 5 I haven't thought about. It's a new direction towards settlement, or a new way to approach an issue, or maybe a metaphor to get the parties thinking a different way. I can then pop back in, continue with the conversation, and use some of the AI suggestions to keep the conversation moving towards a settlement. Now, we can do that in real time at a traditional mediation, but it takes a little bit more work, a little bit more effort. And I think the more people realize how to leverage this technology, you can set things up ahead of time to help you facilitate real-time case resolution, real-time landing that client, real-time opening and closing opening statements or closing arguments that are personalized towards the specific audience and personalities and issues at hand. So yeah, this is an exciting time to be a lawyer. And, I'm not a coder. Half the stuff I see you talk or write about, it's way over my head. But the beautiful thing is, we don't need to know all of that to leverage the power of what these platforms are giving us in today's world to be better and faster. And that's the part I like. Reduce the friction, improve the output. You're going to have happy clients. And when I have a happy client, I've got a happy law firm. It's that simple.
So one thing I want to talk more about is those practical use cases, because I think far too many lawyers, when they hear, especially over the past year and a half, about AI, that it's abstract, that it's kind of framed as magic, and where to start is really difficult to wrap one's mind around. And that example, one concrete example you gave about it creating questions that you could bring up, or issues that you could bring up to break a logjam, like not only like in the abstract, create some like deposition questions for me or whatever, but these are within the context of a mediation and specifically geared towards trying to move the mediation forward. What are some other examples like that where you've used, AI in that kind of concrete, plug it in during your practice to get value out of it?
Well, I'll tell you, we didn't get a chance to try the case, but I was preparing an opening statement in a jury trial for significant damages, a case settled, where it was in a conservative venue. There were some local issues that were in the news, and I wanted to make sure I had the right people sitting in the jury box. So we used AI to help come up with, I don't know, 50 open-ended questions that I could ask the jurors based upon these existing issues in this community, based upon the issues in the case, to give me a little bit more insight as to who was sitting there, what was their makeup, because I'm a firm believer in jury selection of voir dire, to have conversations with my jurors. I don't instruct them. I don't tell them what to do. I ask open-ended questions and just listen to what they have to say, and then I'll ask a follow-up. So I think something that really jumped out at me is when we did this exercise, it gave me some amazing open-ended questions to really drill down on who I want in these seats and the questions that I can ask them and the follow-up questions. That might be one example. Another thing we're doing is, and this is probably about a year ago, is we took our 50 or 75 most used templates. And I always thought our template communications were really good, very personalized, whether it's a text, whether it's an email, whether it's traditional snail mail. And we actually fed them into a couple of different AI systems, asking to check and improve the spelling, the grammar, make these more personal towards each and every client. And the results, Tom, were amazing. I mean, the output with a little bit of tweaking, it was much better than what we had been using. Just little minor things. It's hard for me to explain. You know how these work, how this process works better than I do. But I will tell you that it helped us improve the everyday documents and letters and texts and emails that we use in our law firm. And it does come down to prompting it a certain way. I'm not sure. I think in your system, you allow prompts to be set up by somebody that knows what they're doing so that the lawyer can click in and then use that existing prompt to take things to the next level. But that's something else we've had a lot of success with. And then lastly, we've been using this type of technology to summarize and index. And we'll put a document in a long deposition or whatever it may be, and we'll ask the AI to summarize the document and tell us what are the 10 key issues in this deposition transcript relating to the red light, green light issue. And it's amazing how accurate these systems are for identifying these issues. Now, I'm a big believer in doing our own due diligence and making sure that what we're looking at and what we're analyzing is accurate. But that's not that hard to do. I mean, the facts of the case. The lawyers know what the issues are. And what we're doing is really helping, using this technology to summarize, to advise, and to really stay focused on the issues that matter in the case, as opposed to getting sidetracked with unimportant facts or issues. That's how we're using it.
Thank you so much for those examples, because it really gets into the nitty-gritty where a lot of our work is done. And I think sometimes the examples and what I hear lawyers talking about is more this narrow, like legal research, focus where if it doesn't write a winning motion for me that I could file with the Supreme Court, then, throw it out the window with the bait, we need to keep experimenting on this. But when it comes to like everyday things that we do in our office, there's so much of it that doesn't require that. But what it does do, and this is what I think the real secret is with AI, is that what is our excuse most of the time about not being able to do something? That we don't have enough time, right?
Right. Time's everything.
And this unlocks that because it's able to handle a lot of these, issues in a very quick amount of time. It frees us up to actually, have a more strategic mindset.
And a better lifestyle. A better lifestyle. If we're not spending hours on something that AI can do in 30 seconds, what are you going to do with the next couple of hours of your time? You can bring in more cases. You can spend more time with your family or kids. You can work out. Tom, it's interesting to have the right mindset. I was speaking in front of a law school audience. It was a law review symposium, and I gave an example, and it was misinterpreted. It was misinterpreted as to the meaning of what I was trying to communicate. And here's what I told everybody. Listen, everybody, here's one way I'm using it. I received a discovery question, an interrogatory, or it was an inspection demand from the other side. I took my phone and I took a picture of the question, whatever it was, right? And my prompt was, what objections are available under the California Code of Civil Procedure, the California Evidence Code, and the local Orange County Rules of Court to not only the content of this question, but how this question is being asked. I noticed it was a compound question. And it gave me like 15 objections that I could use. That was the end of my example. Somebody in the audience who's a very well-known, experienced lawyer, Mitch, that's the problem with litigators like you. They object to everything that they can in the moon. 15 objections. Oh my goodness, how many trees were killed when preparing the pleadings and the motions to deal with these 15 objections? And I had to stop and I said, no, that's not what I'm trying to say. I'm actually the guy that rarely objects. I'll pick up the phone and talk to opposing counsel. The point I was trying to make is that in literally 30 seconds worth of time with a single photograph of a pleading, this system can identify for me 10 to 15 potential objections. It's then the human component that decides, what am I going to do with this new information that took me less than a minute to figure out. It's so powerful, but you've got some people that are they've dug themselves into one position or another that they never even give themselves a chance to explore the power of this type of technology. And that was a really good real world example where once I explained it to him and my audience of 200 or 300 people, whatever it was, everyone was like, oh, that makes sense. That's a really cool way to use the technology. Take us back by the hand and explain again how we can take a picture of something and have AI analyze what's inside the picture. That to me is so powerful, right?
Definitely. And it helps for the, quality control, because from our own brain, we might remember 5 or 6 different objections that would be relevant. But how wonderful to have it filled out with 15 so that, we're not forced to use all 15.
No, no, I don't think I used any of them. I think I made a phone call and we got it worked out. But it's good. I think the more information in front of us, not only makes us better lawyers, but if you use that information to help create a better work product, and I think even more importantly, create better client relationships, client experiences, that's where it starts to get really exciting for me is if we can use this technology to keep our time to a minimum, to improve the output, to improve our relationships and communication processes with our clients. To me, that's what's important. I don't really care how we get there. I just want to get there.
That it makes me think of, I think it was yesterday or the day before, you had a get together where people were talking online about this new, this AI song creator.
Right. Suno.ai. Right.
Yeah. And, like offhand, immediately, like, I think, a lawyer might be stumped as to, well, okay, that's great. It makes songs, but how am I going to use that? And you had this interesting idea. I mean, for the right client, like that you're friendly with, you might create a jingle or something that would, it would just make them smile. And sometimes that's what you need.
Sometimes, that's what you need to bring in that new client or to win that jury verdict is something new and unique, something that shows that you or your team has spent some time really appreciating where that client's coming from. And my point with Suno.ai was simply to play around with a new technology that allows you, and if everyone's not familiar with it, you can type in the type of music you're looking for and it creates a song. You can type in the lyrics or it will generate its own lyrics based upon the talking points that you put in. Or you can create a song in an AI service like LawDroids or ChatGPT, whatever it may be, and you can copy and paste the text into Suno, and it'll write a song around it, any type of tempo or tune or genre that you're interested in. Just something fun to play around with. And I think lawyers that play around with this stuff, it kind of helps you rewire your brain a little bit so that when you're using a lawyer-focused AI tool to do X, Y, or Z, inevitably something you've picked up in the Suno app, you're going to be able to use in your prompting efforts or in your review efforts of a more legal focused type of service. So this week, Tom, we're focusing on, and it's interesting with OpenAI's announcement this morning that you and I were talking about before we went live. This week, we're talking about Pi.ai, which is a platform that allows you to talk to your phone and get voice, results, whether it's what's the California civil code for a strict liability dog bite case, boom, it brings it right up. What are the elements of that? And what's the related jury instruction in the state of California? Pulls up that jury instruction along with the jury number. You can then pivot to, let's pivot for a second. My 24-year-old son's not responding to my text messages. How can I change my approach to increase his reply frequency? Then you can bounce over to the price of Bitcoin or what's the weather going to be. This is all in real time. And lawyers that can't figure out how to use this type of technology to improve the quality of their practice, to improve the quality of their life, it's because they're not giving themselves a chance. They've already written it off. When in fact, the train's left the station. This technology is not going anywhere. Yes, it should be regulated, and there are going to be changes. Things are happening every day in the space. But if I was a new lawyer just starting off right now, I'd be looking at everything that you and I are talking about, Tom, as an opportunity, whether it's in intellectual property law, contract law, Web3 smart contract, blockchain law, whatever it may be. There's never been a greater need for more, legal services in so many different spaces that it just blows my mind. I've never seen anything like this in my lifetime. And we're just getting started. It's crazy.
One thing that strikes me about you, Mitch, is just that you have such a open, curious mindset about all of this stuff that's happening and taking it in, experimenting with it, seeing how, it fits into everything else, and then, but not being afraid to do that too. Do you, what, where does that come from? Like, how is it just a natural part of you that you've always been like that, or how do you keep that going?
I haven't thought of it that way. I think for everything you see me doing online, there were, 10 other instances where you didn't see anything at all. Like there's a filtering system here. And I obviously probably don't do most of the things I think about. And what you see is something that I've thought to myself, okay, it makes sense. I've done my due diligence. Traditional state bar rules, in my opinion, allow me to do what I want to do. But let me circle back with growing up. I was the guy, in high school football, especially my senior year in Tucson, 110, 115 degrees, full pad, summer practice. Back then, they didn't encourage us drinking a lot of water because it would toughen us up not to do that. Yeah, this is back, 73, 74, 75. It was a different world. But I'd look up at A Mountain next to our practice field and I'd see these hang gliders flying off, in the cool desert breeze off of A Mountain. I thought to myself, that looks like fun. So my buddy and I signed up, took hang gliding lessons in Sonoyta, Arizona. A month and a half later, we're flying off at A Mountain and all around Arizona and Southern California. We got our expert hang floor licenses, which took us about a year. And I never thought about the risk involved with any of that. It just seemed like something fun to do, right? We then went into sailboarding and scuba diving and all this other fun stuff. Things at rock climbing, things that I wouldn't necessarily want my kids to be doing today. But I think what I did learn from those early life experiences is I'm glad I took the risk. It was interesting, and it always brought something back into my relationships, or maybe how I whether or not I decide to take a case. Is it a challenging case? Is it a case that nobody else wants? The two awards that you mentioned were both cases that other prominent law firms in town weren't interested in taking, and the clients, were referred over to me, and I frankly, with both cases, I just fell in love with the families and really felt bad about what they had been through, and thought, you know what, I think this is something where I can bring some value. And we did that and got, big new verdicts in the state of California on these cases. But maybe, Tom, it's because of the early life experiences where if I didn't prevail at the end of a trial, after full disclosure to the client, them understanding in writing what the challenges of the case are, would it really be the end of the world for me? In other words, if I did my best and tried to bring value to their cases, their causes, and their lives, if I'm successful, that's great. If I'm not successful, they understood what the hurdles were. The sun's going to come up tomorrow morning. So I don't allow that kind of stuff to define who I am or the decisions that I make. And I think when we then take a step back and look at embracing this technology, to me, this is a lot less risky than filing a lawsuit and taking it to trial. This is about, different digital sandboxes that we can play in to make life better, to improve the quality of an outcome for a client, and to meet really cool people. You and I have met some really, really fascinating people in this space. And I know for a fact, had I not started, dabbling in technology and the law years ago, I wouldn't have met a lot of our mutual friends. And to me, relationships and friends, that's really what it's all about when it's said and done. No one's going to ask me, how many cases have you tried? How many cases, how many clients have you represented over the last 3 decades? You and I both know it comes down to friendships and how you've added value into other people's lives. And I only wish, and I don't know about you, I only wish I was 25 years, I was 25 years old again. Like I wish I was at the beginning of this next phase of law and technology, because I think it's going to be a fun and exciting ride uh, for everybody involved.
Well, Mitch, you're jumping on my question. Let me let me ask that one
Oh, I'm
question.
sorry. Interrupt
But
me if I carry
no, no,
on.
no, it's great because that's exactly where I want to go. But I think that everything you're saying, I really hope that people take it to heart, because keeping that open mindset and being brave enough to take a chance is extremely important. And so I want to turn it around on, if you were, talking to yourself at 25, if you're talking to aspiring lawyers and entrepreneurs right now, that might be listening to this or watching it, like what would you recommend to yourself?
Well, I would, first of all, I think practicing law, for me, it's the best profession, the best occupation in the world. So I would, tell myself, definitely get your butt into law school, study, do what you need to do to, to get through school and pass the bar. I loved opening up my own practice. So if you have the ability to open up your own practice, even though the first couple of years are tough, I think with modern technology, you can do it more cost effectively than ever. I think I would also, Tom, focus on everything, every decision that you make, everything that we're doing, especially, like I said, if we're looking back in time, focus on the technology aspect of every issue that you're representing clients uh, on, in, or about, because technology is controlling everything. Having said that, I would double down on communication and storytelling skills. I really feel like we're not born being good communicators or storytellers. And if anybody, those of you that know me, especially when I was younger, I've never been accused of being the sharpest knife in the drawer. That but you can still learn how to communicate. You can
I
still
find that
learn how.
really hard to believe, Mitch.
Yeah, well, you talked anyway. Yeah, it's not that complicated. But the point is, Tom, is that we can all learn how to tell different stories. And now we can ask AI, share with me the five most effective storytelling styles or techniques. And these are my facts. These are the issues. Incorporate this into a story using one of these five proven techniques, for example. So I would double down on really working on my communication and storytelling techniques. I'd also work on networking. And every time you're out networking and connecting with people, it doesn't have to be about bringing in business. I think if you connect with people on a true shared passion or interest level, I think the business will come. What I didn't tell you back in the early days is it was really hard for me, to get those cases referred to my firm in Southern California because of the competition. Some of the best law firms in the world are in Orange County and Los Angeles County. They're just well known. They handle all the big cases. And what I realized is once I started inviting other lawyers to the local motocross tracks with me, because I grew up riding and racing motocross, all of a sudden there were, on any given Wednesday morning, Tom, we'd have 6 to 8 lawyers down at Lake Elsinore and 1 or 2 judges. Okay, on a Wednesday morning, and we just do laps. Most of us would ride about a half day. And what I noticed is all of a sudden, guess who started referring cases back and forth to each other? It was the lawyers in that little pack, right? And then when the word got out at the courthouse that there were lawyers, riding motocross every Wednesday morning, other lawyers wanted to get involved, or they wanted to learn how to ride too. And so this is before the internet and social media and everything else, but I did notice how it kind of generated this brotherhood or these friendships that then turned into really good referral sources. I would also remind myself to focus on the client relationships. With my parents, the guest, they always came first. Even if they're wrong, Mitch, the customer's always right. Now, I will tell you, I don't roll like that anymore. That's not the way I feel. But starting off, that did make a difference. I just bent over backwards to really try to keep the customer happy. And I've transitioned to the point where Lisa and I will only represent people who we believe in, who we trust, who we think we can add value, who aren't assholes. I mean, life's too short to surround yourself with negativity. And by laying the foundation early with these qualities and working at it, what I found is it allows you to make other types of decisions that frankly are in your best interest as you get older and more established, that you can then use to have a better quality of life, with your spouse, with your kids, with your community members. So that's what I would tell myself if I was to go back into time and kind of do it over again. Those are the things that I think make a difference. And by the way, as a lawyer, your reputation's everything, right? You don't need to stretch the truth when it comes to arguing an issue, or you don't need to get mad at opposing counsel when there's a difference of opinion. I read someplace, and I've tried to walk my talk, be tough on issues, but be kind to people. And whether you're, having a conversation with a neighbor out front, or you're in court, having a disagreement with the judge, I think lawyers that remember to separate the people from the issue are the ones that can build long and fulfilling careers.
Wow. Well, Mitch, I mean, I think all of that is amazing advice, and I think I would have been so lucky to get that when I was young too.
I was going to ask you, if you were to go back, you're 25 and you're starting over, what kind of things would you tell yourself?
I think for me, it would have been, don't be so hard on yourself, because, I got experience in many different ways in working in different industries. I was working in Hollywood for a little while, and I think that, in the back of my head at the time, I was being hard on myself, thinking, well, you're not doing lawyer stuff. You went to law school, but all of those things, kind of like your experiences, informed what I'm doing now. Like all of it comes together. It's just a matter of how you put it to work.
What are your thoughts based upon your experiences of approaching it as, especially the practice of law, is when it's all said and done, it's just a big game. And the reason I'm saying that is obviously the issues that we help our clients with, frankly, can make or break their lives or their businesses. Like, I get that, right? But if you put too much pressure on yourself, and that's why I'm bringing this up, with you putting pressure on yourself when you were younger, I think it inhibits our ability to perform to our best. Like when you see professional athletes out on the court, the NBA playoffs that are happening right now, the best athletes out there, frankly, they look like they're having fun. They look like they're loose, and they're getting their teammates involved, and they're not putting the weight of the world on their shoulders. And because of that, they're performing better. And I tell young lawyers, treat it like you're playing a game. We all know it's not a game, but don't put so much pressure on yourself, because it's going to affect everything else that you're doing. Don't you think it's easier for you and I to appreciate that advice now at this point in our life than if someone told us that at 25? I
Oh,
mean,
100%,
right?
100%, because, we've both accomplished some things during our life so far. And I mean, that gives us, I think, the distance, or the confidence, really, to know that you could do it again if you had to.
We're also in a profession where we're not in control of all the moving pieces. And I don't know, what a particular juror is going to do. I can do my best to get the best people I think should be in the box. But if you're defining your success or your reality or your happiness on what's a third party who doesn't like lawyers, doesn't want to be there, he'd probably try to get out of jury duty. What they end up deciding I think it's just not, that's not where you want to focus your time or energy. If you focus your time and energy on the things you have control of, there you go. That's what I would have told myself, Tom. Focus on what you have control over. Do your best with everything else in mind. And when I say everything else in mind, I mean your physical health, your emotional health, your family, your friends, and then and only then your practice, your business, your occupation. You got to keep things in that order. That's what I would have wished someone would have told me at 25, because if you do that, you should be able to lay your head on a pillow at night and get a good night's sleep. You've done everything that you reasonably were expected or could possibly have done. That's the advice I would have given myself, in addition to everything else we talked about.
Well, I think that's leaves no better place to stop, because I think that's really great advice. And I really want to thank you for being on the show, Mitch.
I appreciate it, Tom. Thanks for being in my life. Thanks for your support. Thanks for sharing the latest tech stuff with me. I mean, I learned so much from you, and all the value you bring to the tech community, Tom. It doesn't go unnoticed. It's not unappreciated. And there's a lot of us out there on the fringe. Like, I'm a full-time lawyer and mediator, right? This isn't what I do for a living, but I got to tell you, I know who my go-to people are to read and to learn. And so when you reached out to me, it was an easy, let's do it. My pleasure. And so the pleasure's all mine, Tom. It's good to see you again.
Good to see you too, Mitch. And
All
for
right, take care.
everyone that's watching or listening and would like to keep in touch with you and learn more about what you're up to, how would they do that?
The easiest way to do that is just stay connected with me on LinkedIn. I'm kind of allocating my time and attention to LinkedIn, or bounce over to my blog, which is mitchjackson.com, and reach out, say hello, and we'll start the journey together.
Sounds great. And for all of our listeners and watchers, thank you so much for tuning into the LawDroid Manifesto podcast. See you next time.
Thank you so much for watching the latest episode of the LawDroid Manifesto podcast. To keep in the loop about upcoming episodes, please subscribe to LawDroid Manifesto and you'll get notified. Thanks for watching. See you next time.